Once the night sky was a stage for gods and monsters. A flash of light was not a scientific event, but a dragon soaring or a goddess weeping. This video uncovers how ancient myths explained meteor showers, comets, and every kind of celestial fire. You will gain a complete new lens for seeing the stars, one where science and story illuminate each other. We will explore why cultures across the world saw divine warnings in comets and what they believed was stealing the sun during an eclipse. When you look up at a shooting star, what story does your heart want to tell? A sudden streak of fire in that sacred sky was never just a rock falling. It was a weapon thrown in a war beyond human understanding. Across the ancient world, cultures witnessed meteor showers and saw the aftermath of epic battles playing out in the heavens. In Norse mythology, the brilliant flashes of the aurora borealis were not just pretty lights. They were the shimmering reflections of the Valkyries' armor, warrior goddesses who chose the slain for Odin's great hall. Every streak of light could be a spirit being guided to its new home. This belief wove the cold, distant sky directly into the fate of every person. A meteor shower was not a scientific event to be recorded, but a spiritual one to be interpreted. It was a sign that the gods were active, that the cosmic order was being maintained through conflict and honor. The sheer scale of these celestial displays made them impossible to ignore, transforming the night into a theater of divine power. This interpretation of light as conflict extended far beyond the frozen north. In Japan, the culture saw these fiery trails not as armor, but as the tears of the kami, the spirits that infused all of nature. A particularly bright meteor might be a sign of a deity's profound sorrow or a moment of great emotional weight in the spirit world. The sky was alive with feeling, and its phenomena were the direct expressions of beings far more powerful than humanity. This idea that the heavens were emotionally charged, that they could weep or rage, made every celestial event deeply personal and often unsettling. It was this very unpredictability that gave comets their formidable reputation. That brilliant tail stretching across the dark canvas of night was almost universally interpreted as a dire omen. Ancient Rome saw these celestial visitors not as wonders, but as warnings. The historian Pliny the Elder described comets as human hair, a sign of public mourning for a coming disaster. When a comet blazed in the sky just before Julius Caesar's assassination, it was seen as his soul ascending to the gods, yet it also served as a grim warning of the brutal civil war that would soon tear the Republic apart. This fear was not confined to Rome. Centuries later, in England, the famous Bayeux Tapestry immortalizes Halley's comet looming over a terrified King Harold II. Its appearance was interpreted as a divine signal of his impending defeat and death at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. These long-haired stars were not seen as natural objects, but as supernatural messengers. Their paths and brightness were meticulously recorded by court astrologers, who saw in them clues to the future fortunes of kings and the fate of entire empires. The fear they inspired was a palpable force, shaping decisions and destinies. But was this interpretation of doom shared by every great civilization looking up at the same sky? For one ancient culture, these celestial wanderers were not harbingers of collapse, but something far more majestic and structured. In ancient China, the appearance of a comet was not a simple matter of superstition. It was a state event documented with the precision of a royal decree. Chinese astronomers called these celestial visitors Broom stars or Hui for their long, sweeping tails that seemed to cleanse the heavens. Imperial observatories maintained meticulous records for centuries, viewing the sky as a grand celestial bureaucracy. A comet did not merely signal doom. It swept away the old and brought in the new. Its message was not one of random destruction, but of necessary correction. The interpretation was a complex art. The direction of the tail held critical meaning. A tail pointing away from the sun might warn of coming drought, while one pointing toward it could predict devastating floods. The comet's color and the constellation it passed through added further layers to the prophecy. This was a highly structured system for reading the sky. A brilliant Broom star was often interpreted as a sign that the emperor had lost the mandate of heaven, the divine right to rule. It was a cosmic signal that the current order was out of balance and that profound change was imminent. This systematic approach reveals a civilization striving to find a logical order in the apparent chaos of the cosmos. The heavens were not a place of random anger, but a reflective surface showing the state of the human world below. While these grand comets demanded imperial attention, the smaller, more frequent flashes of light in the night sky sparked a different kind of story entirely, one that felt much closer to home. While the Chinese saw order in comets, the smaller, more frequent flashes of a meteor shower were interpreted through a far more intimate lens. These celestial sparks were not omens for emperors but stories for everyone. The ancient Greeks watched the Perseid meteor shower each August and saw more than just streaks of light. They witnessed the fiery trail of the sun god Helios's chariot as it raced across the sky, a shower of golden sparks cast down to the earth. In other tales, these same lights were the tears of the gods themselves, shed for the endless struggles of humanity far below. Every meteor was a drop of divine sorrow, a reminder that even the immortals were not untouched by the world's hardships. This view transformed the cold void of space into a place of profound empathy. The Norse, however, saw a different kind of drama unfolding. To them, a shooting star was not a tear but a spark flying from the mighty hammer of the thunder god, Thor, as he battled the giants who threatened the world. Others saw them as the arrows of the gods, shot down from the high walls of Asgard in a cosmic conflict that never ceased. This was not a sky of quiet contemplation, but one of eternal, glorious battle. Across the ocean, many Native American cultures perceived these lights with a deep spiritual connection. The brief, brilliant flashes were not weapons or tears, but the campfires of ancestors in the spirit world, flickering just beyond the veil. A meteor shower was a moment when that veil grew thin, a time to feel close to those who had passed on and to remember their enduring presence. Each culture, in its own way, turned a random atmospheric event into a powerful narrative of emotion, conflict, and connection. But what about the single, spectacular fireball, the one that outshines all the others? Its story was often far more personal, and for those who witnessed it, utterly terrifying. A single, earth-shaking fireball was more than a spectacle. It was a direct message. When a meteoroid did not fully burn up and instead tore through the atmosphere as a blinding sphere of light, ancient witnesses saw the divine hand itself at work. This was no mere spark from a god's hammer. It was the weapon in its entirety, a thunderbolt hurled by a furious sky deity. The Greeks saw the master bolt of Zeus, a weapon that could shatter mountains. In Vedic traditions, it was the Vajra, the unbreakable lightning bolt of the god Indra, used to strike down malevolent forces. The sound of the impact, a deafening crack of thunder, was proof of its divine origin. But the story did not end with the light and the noise. The most powerful evidence was what remained on the ground. The physical fragments of these celestial visitors, the meteorites, were seen as the very thunderstones of the gods. They were not just symbols of power, they were power itself made solid and given to humanity. These strange, heavy stones that fell from the sky were collected with reverence, believed to hold a sacred energy. One of the most revered objects in the world, the black stone housed in the Kaaba in Mecca, is believed by many Islamic scholars to be a meteorite, a celestial gift sent to Earth. Its very origin in the heavens made it a perfect focal point for prayer and connection to the divine. This belief in the sacred power of sky metal was not confined to the spiritual realm. It had very practical and very royal applications. The ancient Egyptians, for instance, faced a puzzle. They lived in a world of copper and bronze, but they occasionally discovered small, precious pieces of iron that did not rust. This metal did not come from the earth, it came from the stars. They called it iron from the sky, and they reserved it for their most important figures. The most stunning example is the dagger of Tutankhamun, its blade crafted from a meteorite. For a pharaoh, a god-king, a weapon made from the substance of the heavens was the ultimate symbol of his authority, a direct link to the cosmic order. These thunderstones, whether enshrined in a holy site or forged into a king's blade, were the ultimate bridge. They made the vast, untouchable sky something you could hold in your hand, a tangible piece of celestial power that forever changed the world below. And if a mere stone from the sky could be a god, then what of the bright, wandering lights that moved with such purpose through the night? That deep red dot in the night sky was not a simple planet to the Romans. It was Mars, the god of war himself, his color a permanent stain of conflict. The brilliant, unwavering light of Venus was the goddess of love, a beacon of beauty that appeared in both the evening and the morning. And the swift, elusive Mercury perfectly embodied the messenger god, darting between the horizons. These were not just poetic labels. The very behavior of these wandering stars shaped their divine personalities and the urgent messages they were believed to send. When Mars appeared to slow down and reverse its course in a retrograde motion, court astrologers did not see a simple orbital illusion. They interpreted it as the god of war turning his back on a nation, a celestial sign that a military campaign was doomed to fail. The steady, predictable journey of Jupiter reinforced its role as the king of the gods, a symbol of order and authority. This personification created an entire, interactive pantheon moving in a grand, silent ballet overhead. The relationships between these celestial bodies were read as a continuous divine drama, a saga written in light and motion. Yet this orderly celestial dance was not always peaceful. The predictable paths of the planets made the sky feel like a familiar, if powerful, kingdom. But what happened when a true stranger, a blazing and unpredictable fire, tore through that established order? The sudden ignition of a new star was a tear in the very fabric of the cosmos. Where ancient cultures saw a fixed and eternal tapestry, a brilliant point of light would blaze into existence, challenging everything they knew about the heavens. These events, what we now call nova and supernova, were not seen as natural phenomena but as profound cosmic resets, the ultimate myth of death and rebirth written in fire. In 1054 AD, Chinese astronomers meticulously recorded a guest star in the constellation of Taurus. It shone with such ferocity that it was visible alongside the sun for 23 consecutive days, a defiant daytime beacon. We now understand this was the supernova that gave us the beautiful Crab Nebula, but to those ancient sky watchers, it was a celestial omen of monumental importance. It signaled the end of one cosmic cycle and the violent, glorious birth of another. This theme of fiery renewal found its perfect allegory in the West with the legend of the phoenix. This magnificent bird, after living for centuries, would build its own funeral pyre and be consumed by sacred flames, only to rise again from the ashes, renewed and youthful. The sudden blaze of a new star in the night sky was the phoenix igniting, a promise that even in the vastness of space, endings were merely preludes to new beginnings. These stories gave people a way to comprehend the incomprehensible. The appearance of a guest star could herald the birth of a legendary emperor or mark the passing of a great age. It was a framework for understanding cataclysm as a necessary, even sacred part of existence. This deep-seated human need to find meaning in celestial violence finds its most dramatic expression not in the birth of a star, but in the temporary death of our own. A solar eclipse tore a hole in the world's light, and for a few terrifying minutes, it seemed the sun might never return. This was not a passive observation but a cosmic emergency, demanding immediate human action. The ancient Chinese saw a celestial dragon consuming their source of life and warmth, and the response was a cacophony of banged drums and shouted prayers, a community's united effort to frighten the beast into spitting the sun back out. For the Vikings, the darkness was the moment of capture. Their myth spoke of two wolves, Skal and Hati, in a perpetual chase across the sky. An eclipse meant one had finally caught its celestial prey, plunging the world into shadow until the wolf was forced to release it. Perhaps the most vivid explanation comes from Hindu tradition, where the decapitated demon Rahu, his head forever alive, seeks revenge by swallowing the sun. But with no throat to hold it, the sun simply falls out the other side, restoring light to the world. These were not mere stories. They were survival guides, providing a script for how to act when the cosmic order seemed to break. The noise, the rituals, the communal prayers, all transformed paralyzing fear into purposeful action, giving people a role in saving their own world from an eternal night. This interactive relationship with the cosmos reveals that myth was humanity's first emergency protocol. Far to the north, that same sky was not a stage for monsters, but a grand, frozen tapestry woven with threads of shimmering light. That silent, celestial dance of light offered a profound sense of peace, a direct link to a benevolent spirit world. Yet this tranquil relationship with the heavens could not last forever. A quiet revolution was beginning, one that would slowly untangle the threads of myth from the mechanics of the cosmos. The first crack in the ancient sky appeared not with a new theory, but with a careful, repeated observation. In ancient Greece, a handful of philosophers looked past the gods and saw a cosmos operating by its own consistent rules. They proposed that comets were not divine messengers but natural phenomena, perhaps even objects that traveled through the space beyond the moon. This was a radical, fragile idea, and it was largely forgotten for centuries, overshadowed by the powerful stories that gave meaning to chaos. The true shift began with the patient work of Islamic astronomers during the Golden Age. In observatories from Baghdad to Damascus, scholars like al-Battani meticulously charted the paths of planets and stars, compiling data so precise it would be used for centuries. They were not trying to disprove the divine, but to understand its grand design with mathematical clarity. This vast collection of observations became a priceless inheritance, passed along trade routes and into the libraries of a Europe slowly awakening from its intellectual slumber. It was there that a brilliant and famously stubborn man would look at this accumulated knowledge and see a pattern that would shake the world to its core. That stubborn man was Nicolaus Copernicus. Looking at the complex math required to make the Earth the center of the universe, he saw a simpler, more elegant truth. The sun, not our world, was the center. This heliocentric model was a quiet intellectual bomb, dismantling the celestial stage where gods and planets had danced around humanity for millennia. Suddenly, Earth was just another world moving through space. This was the ultimate demotion, and it set the stage for a final, decisive clash between celestial story and celestial fact. The old sky of myth, filled with meaning and divine intention, was being methodically taken apart piece by piece by the relentless engine of observation and reason. It was a shift that began not in a laboratory, but in the minds of ancient Greek thinkers centuries before. In the vibrant intellectual culture of 5th century BCE Greece, a new way of thinking began to challenge the power of the gods. The philosopher Anaxagoras looked at a meteor and did not see a weapon of Zeus. He saw a rock that had fallen from the sky. He studied the sun and declared it not a divine chariot, but a glowing mass of metal larger than the entire Peloponnese. These were not just new ideas, they were acts of profound impiety in a society where the gods were woven into every aspect of life. For suggesting that the celestial bodies were physical objects and not deities, Anaxagoras was arrested, tried, and ultimately exiled from Athens. His story is a powerful testament to the immense social and religious tension that accompanied this earliest stirring of science. The quest for natural explanations came with a very real personal cost. This movement toward a structured cosmos found its most influential voice in Aristotle. He sought to bring order to the entire universe, proposing that the heavens were made of a perfect, unchanging fifth element called ether. In his system, comets were not distant wanderers but atmospheric exhalations, much like lightning, occurring in the realm below the moon. While his specific theories were wrong, his approach was revolutionary. He moved the discussion from the unpredictable whims of the gods to the consistent, predictable domain of natural law. The sky was no longer a canvas for divine drama. It was a complex, yet ultimately knowable, mechanical system. This was the crucial, fragile foundation upon which all future astronomy would be built, a first daring step into a universe that could be understood, not just worshipped. The Star of Bethlehem remains one of history's most powerful fusions of celestial light and human faith. For centuries, astronomers and historians have debated its true nature. Was it the rare and brilliant conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, two planets appearing to merge into a single beacon of light? Could it have been the sudden, unexpected flare of a new star, a nova, announcing a birth to the world? Or was it the sweeping tale of Halley's Comet, a celestial visitor recorded by Chinese astronomers around the time of the traditional date for the Nativity? The scientific identity of the star is a mystery we may never fully solve, yet its cultural and spiritual impact is undeniable. Within the Christian narrative, this was not a random omen for an emperor. It was a divine compass, a specific and purposeful guide for the Magi, the wise men from the East. Their journey, directed by the heavens, transformed an astronomical event into a pivotal moment of divine intervention. The star became a character in the story itself, moving and stopping with clear intention to mark a specific location. This interpretation shows a profound evolution in celestial storytelling. The sky was no longer just a screen for generalized warnings or cosmic battles. It could now deliver a message of hope and specific guidance, directly intertwined with the course of human history. It perfectly illustrates how the same night sky, observed by countless eyes, could be woven into a foundational myth of divine purpose and grace. This masterful blending of celestial observation and spiritual meaning finds a powerful parallel in another ancient civilization, one that looked to the stars not just for gods, but for the very rhythm of life on Earth. The cosmos was not merely observed in Mesoamerica, it was a living, breathing entity demanding participation. For the Maya and Aztec civilizations, the movements of the stars were as critical as the turning of soil, a divine script that dictated the fate of kings and the survival of the world itself. They built a cosmology of breathtaking complexity, where astronomy, mythology, and the passage of time were threads in a single, unbreakable cord. At the heart of this system was the planet Venus, the brilliant morning star. Its predictable cycles were not just charted, they were decoded as the movements of the feathered serpent god, known as Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs and Cuculcan to the Maya. The first appearance of Venus after a period of invisibility was a moment of immense power, a signal that could launch a military campaign or determine the auspicious date for a new ruler's coronation. War was often timed to coincide with specific celestial alignments of the morning star, transforming battle into a ritual act performed in sync with the gods. This was a sky that issued direct commands. But the most profound fear was reserved for the moments when that celestial order broke down. A solar eclipse was not a spectacle, it was a crisis. The Maya believed the sun was being attacked by a cosmic jaguar, while the Aztecs saw it as a sign that the sun god Huitzilopochtli was weakening, requiring immediate nourishment to continue his daily battle against the darkness. This belief led to the practice of ritual offerings, a ceremonial act intended to strengthen the sun and ensure its return. The Maya viewed time itself as a series of great cycles, each world having been created and destroyed before our own. They watched the heavens for any sign of the next cosmic reset, believing their calculations could predict the end of an age. The sky was a vast, intricate clock, and every eclipse, every planetary transit, was a chime from this divine machinery, demanding a precise and ritualistic human response. This represents a zenith of mythological astronomy, a system where human life was completely intertwined with the celestial dance. Across the globe, another ancient culture was developing a relationship with the stars that was equally profound, yet fundamentally different in its purpose. For the Polynesian wayfinder, the ocean was a highway and the stars were its signs. Their survival on the vast, featureless Pacific depended not on fearing the sky, but on reading it with a scientist's precision. They developed a star compass, a mental map of the heavens where the rising and setting points of nearly 300 stars served as fixed directional points. The sky was not a screen for divine drama but a complex, reliable chart. A navigator would hold his course by keeping one guiding star directly over the prow of his canoe, and as that star moved, he would seamlessly transfer his alignment to the next in sequence. This was a living, breathing relationship with the cosmos, a continuous act of observation and adjustment that turned the entire celestial sphere into a practical instrument. They even read the ocean itself, interpreting swells and bird flight patterns as extensions of this celestial map. Yet within this rigorous empirical framework, mythology still had its place. They saw the Milky Way not as a random scattering of stars, but as a great shark, and the tight cluster of the Pleiades as a group of sisters. A sudden meteor might be noted as a fleeting story, but it would not change the navigator's calculated course. This dual vision is remarkable. Here was a culture that achieved one of humanity's greatest feats of exploration by trusting the consistent laws of the universe, all while seeing that same universe as alive with meaning. Their success stands in stark contrast to the astrological determinism that gripped medieval Europe, where the stars were seen as dictating fate rather than illuminating a path one could choose to follow. This practical mastery of the heavens hints at a profound truth, that our ancestors were not always passive observers of the sky. But what happens when the entire foundation of that sky, the very stars themselves, begin to shift over generations? Medieval Europe looked up and saw a sky of judgment. The orderly cosmos of Aristotle was forgotten, its scrolls locked away in monastery libraries. In its place reigned a profound superstition, where every unusual light was a direct message from a wrathful god. Comets, those Broom stars of necessary change to the Chinese, became terrifying portents of plague, famine, and war. Their appearance sent waves of panic through entire kingdoms. Rulers and clergy would engage in frantic interpretation, searching scripture and their own consciences for the sin that had provoked this celestial rebuke. Public penance was ordered, prayers were offered day and night, all in a desperate attempt to appease the divine anger blazing overhead. This was not a sky of mythic battles or empathetic tears. It was a screen for the deepest human anxieties, a cosmic mirror reflecting a terrified belief in imminent punishment. The careful observations of earlier cultures were lost, replaced by a worldview that saw nature itself as a moral commentary on human affairs. This regression into fear-based interpretation created an intellectual environment ripe for conflict. The stage was now set for a dramatic and dangerous collision between this sky of divine wrath and the first tentative sparks of a new way of thinking, a method that would demand evidence over revelation. A brilliant, unexpected visitor streaked across the European sky in 1577, and a man named Tycho Brahe saw not an omen but an opportunity. With meticulous precision, he measured the comet's position from two different locations. This technique, known as parallax, revealed a stunning truth. The comet was not a fiery exhalation in Earth's atmosphere as Aristotle had taught. It was a celestial traveler far beyond the moon, moving through the space reserved for the perfect, unchanging planets. This single observation, backed by cold, hard math, delivered a fatal blow to the ancient model of crystalline spheres. A comet had passed right through where those solid orbs were supposed to be, proving they did not exist. The heavens were not a perfect, immutable machine. They were a dynamic space where new things could appear and old certainties could vanish. Europe's intellectual world was forced to confront an uncomfortable new reality. The cosmos was not the orderly, enclosed system described by tradition. It was far vaster and more mysterious. This was a decisive victory for measurement over myth, for observation over dogma. Yet the old stories of divine portents and heavenly warnings did not simply disappear. They lingered in the public imagination, creating a deep cultural tension. People now had to reconcile the new, evidence-based sky with the ancient, story-filled one they had always known. How does a society navigate a universe that is suddenly both measurable and profoundly unknown? Isaac Newton's laws of motion and gravitation gave humanity a new kind of sight. For the first time, the invisible forces that moved the heavens could be described not with a story, but with an equation. It was Newton's friend, the astronomer Edmund Halley, who took these powerful new tools and pointed them directly at history's most feared celestial visitors. He gathered centuries of observations, sifting through records of comets that had blazed across the sky in 1531, 1607, and 1682. Applying Newton's mathematics to their paths, he noticed something astonishing. The orbits were nearly identical. This was not a series of different omens. It was the same object returning again and again. Halley made a breathtaking prediction. He declared this comet would come back in 1758. He would not live to see it, but the sky did not forget. When the comet reappeared right on schedule, it was a triumph that echoed around the world. The object was named Halley's Comet in his honor. Suddenly, a comet was no longer a random herald of doom. It was a predictable traveler, bound by the same universal laws that governed the fall of an apple or the orbit of the moon. The great celestial portent had been tamed by a clockwork universe. The myth of the unpredictable omen was shattered by the quiet, relentless power of mathematics. But if the comet was no longer a divine messenger, what purpose did its story serve? The ancient sky of myth had not vanished. It had simply changed shape, waiting to be rediscovered in a new language. The universe may now be governed by equations, but its soul is still named by poets. Our modern maps of the solar system are filled with the ghosts of ancient stories. We sent a spacecraft to Saturn, but we called it Cassini after the astronomer who first observed the planet's rings. We launched a probe to study Jupiter, and we named it Juno for the Roman goddess who was that planet's divine wife. These are not accidental choices. They are a conscious act of cultural memory, a way of honoring the long human conversation with the stars that predates telescopes by thousands of years. Even our most precise scientific terms are steeped in this heritage. The word planet itself comes from the Greek word for wanderer, a perfect description of how these lights moved so independently against the fixed backdrop of stars. When we look at a star chart, we are not just reading coordinates. We are navigating a gallery of ancient archetypes. The constellation Orion does not cease to be a hunter because we understand the nuclear fusion powering Betelgeuse. The mythology provides a narrative anchor, a human face on the incomprehensibly vast. This is especially true for the most accessible of celestial wonders, the meteor shower. Every August, when the Perseids peak, we are participating in a tradition that connects us directly to the Greeks who saw the fiery trail of Perseus. The name is a functional label pointing to the radiant in the constellation Perseus, but it is also a story. It is a thread of cultural DNA that has been passed down, unchanged, from an age when the sky was a canvas for heroes. This legacy is not a crutch for a less enlightened past. It is a bridge. It reminds us that our drive to understand the cosmos has always been paired with an equally powerful need to find meaning within it. The cold light of science explains how a comet moves, but its ancient name, drawn from a myth of long hair and mourning, reminds us of the awe it once inspired, and in many ways still does. Our ancestors looked up and saw gods and monsters. We look up and see gravity and nuclear fusion, yet we have chosen to keep their names to tell their stories alongside our data. This suggests a profound truth about our species. We have not outgrown myth, we have simply integrated it, allowing it to provide the poetry for our precision. So as we continue to explore, sending probes to asteroids and rovers to Mars, we are faced with a new creative challenge. What stories will we tell about these new landscapes? How will the features of distant worlds be named? And what new myths will we build from our own era of discovery? That brilliant, unexpected flash in the night sky no longer heralds a god's fury, but it can still launch 1,000 modern myths. We have simply traded celestial dragons for extraterrestrial drones, and the great chariot of Helios for a potential interstellar scout ship. The contemporary fascination with unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, fulfills the exact same human need for narrative that comet Omens did for the Romans. A strange, inexplicable light is no longer a divine warning for a king, but evidence of a government cover-up or a visit from a distant civilization. These stories are our culture's way of mapping the new terra incognita, the unsettling gaps in our otherwise data-saturated world. Cosmic conspiracy theories about hidden planets or secret space programs are the modern equivalent of the Maya watching Venus for signs to go to war. They provide a framework, a cast of characters, and a plot for the profoundly unexplained, transforming random sensor glitches or atmospheric oddities into a coherent, if speculative, story. The fundamental impulse is unchanged. We are still looking up at the same mysterious sky, and our minds still rush to fill the void with meaning, to personify the impersonal forces of the cosmos. This psychological continuity reveals that our drive to understand is inextricably linked with our need to narrate. We are, at our core, storytelling creatures, and the greatest story of all remains the one written in the stars above us. Our minds are hardwired to find faces in the clouds and meaning in the chaos. This deep psychological need to impose a story onto the world is the very engine that created our celestial myths. Faced with a vast, indifferent cosmos, our ancestors did something remarkable. They refused to be passive victims of a random universe. When a terrifying solar eclipse occurred, the narrative was not that a random shadow fell. It was that a dragon was eating the sun. This shift is profound. A dragon is a character. It has motives, it can be threatened, and it can be persuaded. By banging pots and shouting at the sky, a community was no longer just waiting in terror. They were participating in the story, actively fighting to save their world. This transformation of passive fear into active participation gave people a crucial sense of agency. They were not just observers of the cosmos, they were characters within its drama. This narrative impulse is a fundamental tool of human cognition. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, constantly connecting dots to form a coherent picture. A streak of light is not just a rock burning up, It becomes a tear from a grieving goddess or a spark from a god's forge. These stories are not primitive mistakes. They are sophisticated cognitive tools, a way for the human mind to digest the incomprehensible and find its own role within the grand, mysterious tapestry of the night. To call these stories mere superstition is to misunderstand their fundamental purpose. They were humanity's first operating system for the cosmos, a framework built from careful observation and logical deduction. When a culture declared that a solar eclipse was a dragon consuming the sun, they were not stating a fantasy. They were proposing a causal mechanism for a terrifying, observed event. The hypothesis was that a specific, powerful being was responsible. The prediction was that loud noises would frighten it away, and when the sun returned after the community banged their drums and shouted at the sky, the model was, in their eyes, confirmed. It worked. This process of observe, explain, and test is the very backbone of the scientific method. Even if the proposed actors were divine, these myths were not wild guesses. They were the most rational explanations possible with the tools and knowledge available. Consider the meticulous Chinese records of comet paths. For generations, court astronomers logged the color, direction, and duration of every Broom star. They were gathering data. They then formed a hypothesis linking the comet's appearance to events on Earth, such as a change in imperial leadership or a coming drought. This was a predictive model refined over centuries. The mechanism was supernatural, a loss of the mandate of heaven, but the structure was rigorously analytical. These stories represent our earliest attempts to impose order on chaos, to find a signal in the noise of a vast and often frightening universe. They were our first brave, brilliant steps out of the darkness, using the only tools we had, story and pattern, to begin the long, slow work of comprehension. A dragon eating the sun is a story found in cultures separated by vast oceans. This shared narrative of a celestial beast is one of mythology's greatest puzzles. How could ancient China, the Vikings of Scandinavia, and the indigenous peoples of the Americas all conceive of such a similar explanation for a solar eclipse without ever speaking to one another? The answer lies not in shared culture, but in the shared architecture of the human mind. This phenomenon is known as convergent myth-making. It reveals that when different people witness the same profound and terrifying event, their minds can independently weave a similar tale to explain it. The sudden, inexplicable disappearance of the sun in the middle of the day is a universal shock to the system. The logical leap to a consuming creature is a natural one. What else could possess the power to devour our source of light and life? This was not a case of stories traveling along trade routes. It was a case of parallel human intuition trying to solve the same cosmic mystery. Our brains are wired to seek agency, to see a cause where there is an effect. A random shadow is impersonal and meaningless, but a dragon is a character you can fight. By turning a shadow into a monster, our ancestors transformed a moment of helpless terror into a scenario where they could intervene. The frantic drumming and shouting were not just noise, they were a logical response to the story they had created. This pattern of analogous invention extends far beyond eclipses. The concept of a great flood appears in countless cultural legends, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the story of Noah. Different civilizations experiencing the catastrophic power of rising water all crafted a narrative of divine judgment and renewal. These parallel myths are a testament to our common humanity. They show us that beneath the vast diversity of human culture, we are united by the same fundamental fears, the same drive to explain the world, and the same storytelling instinct that helps us face the darkness, whether it falls from the sky or rises from the sea. That artistic impulse to portray the sky's drama is one of our oldest human traditions. Long before written language, ancient people were painting celestial events on cave walls, using charcoal and ochre to capture the wonder they felt gazing upward. This legacy of cosmic storytelling flows unbroken through history. You can see it on Greek pottery, where intricate black figures depict the thunderbolt of Zeus hurled toward a giant. It is carved in stunning relief on Mayan temple steps, tracking the precise path of Venus as the feathered serpent god. It is woven into the very fabric of Norse epic poetry, where the sparks from Thor's hammer fly through the verses as vividly as they did through the night sky. These artists were not merely illustrating stories, they were building a bridge between the earthly and the divine, making the immense power of the cosmos tangible. The Renaissance masters understood this power perfectly. When they painted the Nativity, the Star of Bethlehem was not a faint point of light. It was a brilliant, concentrated beam, a divine spotlight illuminating the Holy Family and guiding the kings. It was a visual argument for the heavens taking an active role in human destiny. This symbolic language is alive and well in our modern narratives. Filmmakers today still use the image of a streaking comet or a passing asteroid to instantly signal to the audience that a great change is coming, that the world is on the verge of a profound shift. This is the direct descendant of the Roman omen, translated into a new visual dialect. Perhaps the most beautiful fusion happens under the dome of a modern planetarium. There, scientific data projects the precise orbit of Halley's comet, while the narrator recounts the ancient fears it inspired. We see the Crab Nebula in all its telescopic glory, and in the same breath, we hear the Chinese myth of the guest star that announced its explosive birth. This is not a contradiction, it is a collaboration. The cold, hard data gives us the how, the magnificent mechanics of the event, but the myth gives us the why, the emotional weight, the human context that allows us to feel its significance. The beauty of the science and the beauty of the story do not compete. They complement, creating a richer, more resonant understanding of our own place in this vast cosmic tapestry. All of this artistry, from the first cave painting to the latest digital simulation, leads us to a final, contemplative question. Our modern world has built a ceiling of electric light between us and the stars. For many, the true darkness of a moonless night is a forgotten experience, replaced by the constant glow of screens and streetlights. This light pollution does more than just hide the Milky Way. It distances us from the very sense of scale and mystery that the cosmos provides. We have traded a sky filled with gods and monsters for one that is often simply absent. We can recite the scientific explanation for a shooting star with perfect accuracy, yet that knowledge can sometimes feel sterile, a collection of facts that lacks the emotional resonance of a story told for generations. The ancient Greeks did not just know what a meteor was, they felt what it meant. They experienced it as a moment of divine empathy or cosmic conflict, a direct connection to a larger reality. This is the capacity for wonder we risk losing, the ability to be humbled and awed by the sheer spectacle of the universe. So here is an invitation, a simple experiment in dual perception. The next time you find yourself under a clear, dark sky during a meteor shower, try to see with two sets of eyes. First, appreciate the elegant physics at play, the tiny particle from a comet's tail meeting our atmosphere in a final, brilliant flash of energy. Understand the how, then close your eyes for a moment and listen to the older story. Let yourself feel the echo of the myth. See that same streak of light as a spark flying from the mighty hammer of Thor, or a single, shimmering tear shed by a goddess for the struggles of the world below. This is not about choosing one truth over the other. It is about holding both in your mind simultaneously, allowing the precision of science and the poetry of myth to enrich one another. In this act, we do not re-enchant the cosmos with old superstitions. We re-enchant our own experience of it, layering our modern understanding with the profound, timeless awe that has always been our rightful inheritance when we look up. We reclaim our place not just as observers of the universe, but as participants in its ongoing, magnificent story. Our journey through these celestial stories reveals a profound truth about our ancestors. They were not merely telling tales to pass the long nights. They were master bridge builders, constructing the very first connections between the fragile human heart and the overwhelming infinity of the cosmos. These myths were not simple superstitions. They were intricate maps of meaning, essential guides that helped entire cultures navigate a world filled with terrifying and beautiful mysteries. We have seen the incredible diversity of this human creativity, from the doom-laden comets that shook the Roman Senate to the precise, life-saving star compass of the Polynesian voyagers. Each culture looked at the same sky and painted a different masterpiece upon it, each one a reflection of their deepest fears, hopes, and values. The powerful lens of modern science has undeniably given us the true mechanisms behind these phenomena. We now understand the physics of a meteoroid's fiery death and the predictable orbit of a comet, yet this hard-won knowledge does not erase the old stories. Instead, they remain as a priceless cultural inheritance, a library of human wonder that reminds us of our shared history of looking up and asking the same fundamental questions. So let this be a quiet call to action. Look up more often, seek out the darkness beyond the city lights, remember the ancient stories written in the constellations, and feel the connection to every human who has ever stood in awe of a shooting star. Our quest for understanding continues, but it is now a dual journey, one that honors both the elegant equation and the epic poem, forever woven together in the great celestial tapestry above. These ancient stories of gods, portents, and cosmic fire remind us that the sky has always been our first and grandest storybook. If this journey has ignited your imagination, share this video with a friend who also loves a good story. We would love to hear from you too. What celestial myth from your own culture or travels has stuck with you? Share it in the comments below. Let's build a constellation of stories together, weaving a new tapestry of shared wonder from all our different traditions. And if you want to join us on our next adventure into the mysteries of history and mythology, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Until our paths cross again, keep looking up. The next chapter is always written